How you doing? This is the Epic Experiment Podcast. It's episode 165. Nope, I lied. 166. I'm your host, Bruce.
And I'm Pete, and we're talking all things Murders of Karlov. I mean, Magic the Gathering.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're solving mysteries, and we are presenting clues. And Bruce, what are we doing? How can people find us?
Well, if you want to get a hold of us, you can always go find all of our content available on thelotuscouncil.com. Also, our show circulates a number of different Discord servers, so you can go find the direct link to the show there, or on social media on all of our favorite stuff.
Yeah, so the case of us is not solved yet. Let's keep rolling.
No, not yet. All right, this week, folks, we're going to kick off with a little Garbaggio or Great. Are you ready, Pete?
I'm always ready. Let's get after it.
Okay, here we go. Tonight, I went a little bit outside of my regular wheelhouse because I usually find the new cards. This week, I found something that's an old card. It's been reprinted on the list, but it's an old card from Exodus called Oath of Scholars. And this is sort of in the same vein as Oath of Druids, which is a super powerful card from 8 days gone by that still sees lots of play, but Oath of Scholars is a similar but different unique effect. So let's see what you think, Pete. 3 and a blue for an enchantment.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses target player who has more cards in hand than they do and is their opponent. The first player may discard their hand and draw 3 cards.
Okay,
Okay,
first of all, disclaimer. We definitely talked about this, man. We did a segment a long time ago where we talked about each oath cycle. Because we talked about Oath of Druids. I swear to God, man. Okay, fine. You're gonna go deep dive and go find it for me because I will go look. I can't look in Podbean without my head exploding. So, anyway, back to the card though. I think this is very interesting. Because this late in the game, when people's resources are very low, especially their hand is not sculpted, this could really help someone who is purposefully discarding cards for value, or they've run out of gas and they want to try to refill their hand. And I feel like blue, because they have the potential to make people skip the upkeep, they could really run away with this particular effect. I think with decks that force draw, like Nekuzar might not play this, but also it could be really strong if they're forcing them to draw cards.
Right.
And discard cards, because that's what that deck does. I'm thinking more outside the box though, like a deck where you're like exiling cards off the top, and you're playing like Spellslinger sort of effects, where you just need some way to get a few extra cards to look at some more information. I really like that it's in the upkeep because there's the potential to stop somebody from doing something problematic. It also enables Smothering Tithe, which might be a problem for players as well. But the good thing is there's a choice being made, so it makes your opponents have to really think about, do they want the 3 cards or not? Or do they want to just not worry about this? I'm wondering, I'm assuming some group hug decks will run this card, like Kinos and Tyrion, but I don't know. What do you think? Granted, this is a very old card many people haven't seen in a while.
So I was thinking this card, I think my first inclination is to say this card is really not what people want to be doing anymore, because 4 mana in Commander these days is often sort of like that point in the game where if you don't have something impactful that impacts the board in a meaningful way, you're probably going to get steamrolled by somebody. However, this one I think has enough applicability where I think I might be prepared to roll the dice on it too. And I was looking a different way, although the fact that you wanted to skip somebody's upkeep, it makes you kind of a bad person. That's kind of a dirty trick. But I was thinking something along the lines of Riel to start with, because Riel rewards you for discarding cards, so you could discard a whole bunch of stuff, so long as you can trigger this. Eruth is another one, so that's a similar red-blue commander from Shadows. No, the
Bone Miser.
Visit.
Bone Miser's great. The Dracosaur, the red, the red. It's like a badger or something. 4 mana. Whenever
Mhm.
you discard a land, make a treasure. Whenever you discard a non-land, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever you discard a
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, like that would be an interesting way to enable too.
What about
Cycling,
Kydel? What about Kydel chosen of Crewfix, where you tap it to
Hydel's
add
interesting.
tap it to add mana, manage your mana pool for each card you draw on this turn. So if you've
Yeah,
managed to enable this and draw a bunch of cards,
right.
and because this triggers in your upkeep, you're still going to draw one more for your turn.
Mm.
So I think I think this has got some really neat applicability with a variety of different commanders that are not sort of the obvious rank and file commanders. I kind of am interested in this one, and I might be willing to go and spend the 60 cents to go and try it out. I think it's got some neat capacity. So I like it. I'm kind of sold on this one, and I'm going to take you up and look in our show notes if we have previously done this one, and I don't remember having talked about this, but I'll take your word for it that we may have. I wonder if we came to the same conclusion then as we did tonight, that the card is probably secretly
Like
gas.
underrated. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about Song of Creation too. Like that, when people saw that card initially, they were like, "This card is kind of crap," and then they realized how they could break it in half, and then it was like, "Oh wow, that's crazy," right? So like, a lot of these discard your hand effects aren't as, I think, not as negative, like not as detrimental as people first think, because if you're playing fast and you're playing full of gas, then yeah, I just made a rhyme there. That's terrible, but you know what I mean, like.
Jokes.
If your curve is so freaking low, it doesn't even matter because you're going to be playing all of the cards out of your hand
Yeah.
anyway. If you're playing like a deck like blue black where you're discarding cards, drawing cards, you're looting, you're playing a lot of removal, so one off for one sort of
hmm
replacement. It's really nice to get that back. Granted, I don't know, we'd have to see, but the next card, this card we have, I've been split on this because I think this card is secretly pretty cool. But you think it's terrible because you don't like Fallen Empires, but that's very
No,
fair because
because
Fallen Empires
I
really just ruined your magical time at that point, didn't it?
well, I remember I have vivid memories of having played with Fallen Empires cards and all the terrible
And George
fungus.
bullied you.
Well, no, well, yes, that. But we were playing with like that was the first time they really gave us like kindred or tribal materials enough to do stuff.
Yeah.
Because in like the original sets, like there was like Goblin King, there was a black zombie lord, and there was a Lord of Atlantis, which were all sort of tribal lords. But they didn't really have a payoff because there weren't enough elves or goblins or zombies to really matter. So they gave us them in Fallen Empires, but they were so rotten that you're like, I don't want to play these terrible
Yeah. So anyway,
Merfolk
this
cards.
land, this card,
Yeah.
Rainbow Veil, okay? Rainbow
Oh
Veil
my.
is $5. It says add one man of any color. An opponent gains control of Rainbow Veil at the beginning of the next end step.
No,
Why?
no, don't play this. Okay,
Why?
so the fact that you're going to give this away to somebody else means that you're going to be potentially down a mana. So yes, it fixes you for all 5 colors, but you're giving it away. And then if the table decides they're going to play politics with you, they could literally deny you a land for the remainder of the game. And I, if I'm putting land in my deck, I want to know that I'm going to be able to utilize them when I want to utilize them for my spells and not find myself in a hole having to like essentially time walk myself because my land drop ended up in front of you. So I'm not down for this card. This is not the
So
sort of resource I'm prepared to give away. So no thank you.
okay, so you think passing lands are bad. I think passing lands are good, especially when they don't actually get passed. So my typical thing would be tap it, bounce it back to my hand, play like a tap land, like a Karoo land, or sacrifice it and they never get it. The other thing is, in decks that need the fixing, one fixing doesn't matter if you crush them for 50 damage in a turn. You know what I mean? Like I'll give it to you and then you die, which fine, like I don't care. Um, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
I feel like
guess.
there's just potential that we're not seeing with this Fallen Empires
Yeah,
card
but like it
because of the
doesn't
fact
even
that like
mm,
fixing
doesn't
fixing is
even work.
great.
It doesn't even work with Homeward Path. Like you can't even get your back. So you have them having to use the Tristani. The like if you want to get it back and like steal it back from your opponent and keep it, then you need the Tristani Discordant. Where no, that's gains all creatures again. So like, there's no easy way to if you once you've given it
So
away to win it back,
how
you end up
about
having.
like how about like denying them the land with like a Field of Ruin, right? Like you tap your land, then you give it to them, and then you play Field of Ruin and you activate it and you crush that land to give it back to you. So they never actually get to use it. That would be funny.
Uh,
I don't know,
be
man. Like
funny.
I feel like there's just ways like what if you animate the land and you like killed it? Like you sacrificed it at instant speed with like I don't
An
know, like
alter adventure or something.
yeah, something stupid like that. Or like Obun, right? Like Obun making it like a creature land and then like swinging with damn. Anyway, I'm just thinking about like
Oh,
stupid things you could do with it where like you could
like
Nissa it, you could turn it into a elemental or whatever
yeah. I mean,
or something like that or like
you can do dumb things with it, but I'm not sure the dumb things are good things. So I'm like, do I want this card? I'm like, I guess. I mean, I guess if you're putting in this deck, you're accepting that you're going to do something silly, and that's okay. So it's a
or
mind. I
like
guess it has to be a mindset.
yeah, like Blim or you're playing Zedru or something. Like then you're
Yeah,
passing it on
yeah.
purpose because you're getting an effect that's even better than the land that you gave them. Um the consideration is like I would personally play this as a political piece because everybody deserves to play something cool. And it would be cool to like, be like, hey Dave, here you go, buddy. Or like, hey Nick, or like, hey, you know what I mean? So like XYZ person. Or like you go to an LGS you've never seen anybody before, and you're just like, I'm gonna play this land and I'm gonna give it to
You
you.
would you would definitely be the talk of the table. Like, are you, like to
Yeah,
me, like Pete, you're channeling your inner YOLO right here. You're like
I am.
YOLO,
Like I
game
don't
over.
care. Anyway, so things we do care about are these spicy new cards, and
Ooh, are there ever some spicy ones? Woo.
my my inclination here is that I think the first one is I've seen it play in standard, but I also want it in a deck, and I'll tell you why, Bruce. So um, I can read this, or we can just read the name. How do you want to do this
I
particular
think since
part?
these cards are new, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen many of them myself. I think
Fair
it's
enough.
worth a while having a quick, read of the cards so we can have a quick chat
Sure.
about it. Because I don't know what all these cards do either. I had to have to sit down and really parse these out. So what's this first one? What is this?
So this card is Voja, so VOJ, Jaws of the Conclave. It's two colorless, a red, a green, and a white, so it's Naya colored. It's a legendary creature wolf. It's a 5/5 with vigilance, trample, and ward 3.
Oh,
And
that's
whenever
intense.
it attacks, put X+1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control, and then draw a card for each wolf you control. Bruce, what do you think about this card? In
So,
all things and purposes. I'll tell you
well,
why I think it's a good card.
I
Uh,
think
that,
it's a
that's
good card. I think it's a good card, but my brain gets stuck on the conditions by which you have to play it. So you have to, if you want to get counters, you have to be playing elves, and if you want to draw cards, you have to play wolves. And the elves I'm pretty cool with because elves are a thing. And if you're playing Naya, you're playing a heavy greed deck with red and white to complement what you're doing. That makes sense. And so you build a wide board, lots of LV tokens. I was looking at this with Llanowar Mentor, which is another card that allows you to create extra Llanowar elves. But I mean, I also, if you're discarding or play creatures or whatever, you want to be able to recoup some of those cards. And I don't know how many wolves that are worth being played to complement Voja. So, I mean, that was where I got stuck on when I was evaluating this card. Is like, how do
so
I make this
yeah.
condition work for me?
So yeah, I mean it it's not like a typical elf creature type
Mm-hmm.
matters thing where like you play it and it immediately just kind of crushes everything and everyone in its path. I like it because I want to put it into a slot in my tokens deck because I think like I need to buy a Wolverines rider. Unfortunately, it spiked because of this card. It's now a $10 card. It used to be like $2
Ooh.
or $1. But I like to make tokens every upkeep, and then I like to, on my turn, give them haste because Fabian gives them haste, and just kind of like swing with a ton of damage. And she buffs my entire team, so even with it swinging as a 6/6 or a 7/7, getting a +2/+2 from the parlay trigger, it still nets me at least one card, so it replaces itself. And I'm always looking for these sorts of like curve to 5. Like I'm looking to go
Mhm.
from 3 to 5 immediately, or 2 to 4 because of the
Right.
2 mana rocks I'm playing. Not rocks, the 2 mana ramp spells I'm playing, the creatures that ramp me out. And
Mhm.
then my curve out is really 5/6, and then there's maybe 1 or 2 like X spells that might be put in there. I need to put some buyback in there too to make more tokens, but I was thinking the dream would be Maskwood Nexus, turn everything into everything, and then draw my whole deck.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure.
Because that would be really interesting. A weird utility way of using this card, rather than looking at it in a box, is like I do have some elves and I have some ways to make elves, but this is more of like an interesting, in my opinion, a way of like promoting two creature types that like one never had that support and one has too much support, so it's like in the middle, which I
Right.
appreciate. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's how I look at it.
I guess, I mean, one thing I had forgotten to consider was like the changeling angle, where you have changelings, and Maxwood Nexus allows you to tap into that with a pretty wide abundance. But you also have other changelings that you can play in these colors that
Yeah.
also get the benefit of elves and wolves and whatnot. So, I mean, I think the thing's an undeniable stat monster. Like it's a huge body.
Right. That's the other
Ward
thing I consider,
three,
right? It has that protection.
yeah, Ward 3 is like, may as well read hexproof. Like, the number of times that you're keen to fire off a spell at this thing and say, well, I'll happily pay the Ward 3 is like, not really.
Right.
So, I think the card is an absolute stats monster. And I guess if you can trigger those secondary abilities with any degree of regularity, I think the card is excellent. And then so, like, it's exciting, and it's an exciting card. And, like, I can't deny it. Like,
There are
even me, like,
situations where I do go tall in that deck, where like there's
mhm.
one big fat creature, I guess you could say. Even Fabian becomes like 11, like a 9/11 or whatever sometimes because of the buff. So because it's a 5/7, I think, or 5 something like that. It's like a weird
Mm,
stat where like its toughness is huge and its power is pretty bad. But when it comes to like the subtle sort of buffs that the cards can get, that's nice. It kind of plays into some of the other ways I've looked at these cards. The next one,
Now, can I ask you a question before we move on
yeah,
from this Voja?
yeah, that's
Does
cool.
Voja work in conjunction with werewolves, or does it have to be specifically a wolf?
It has to be a wolf, I believe.
I thought so too. And so werewolves like
Let
Tovolar
me
and
let me
whatnot
look
don't play
let me
well with
look
it.
at its ruling real quick. It would have been nice if it does.
It would be amazing if it did. But so much of so many of the cards in this have been printed as werewolves that I'm like, well, let's just get. Would it be possible to get, you know,
I don't
our
see anything
card?
here. I don't think it. I think it's literally just whatever it says on the card is what it
Yeah, so it
produces.
can like plays along with like things like Anara and other good wolves like this.
Even the planeswalkers like Arlen Cord and Arlen, where they make wolves, is pretty good
Oh yeah.
because like
Well,
you play on turn 3, you play Rhythm of the Wild, and then you play that and you make 2 wolves, and then you play Voha, and instead of giving it a counter because it doesn't really matter, you just give it
hmm
haste. And then on turn
yeah.
5, you're swinging, you're drawing 3 cards,
hmm
and there's the potential. So there's potential there. But anyway, so potential versus potential drawback is always what we're
Right.
looking for.
Anyway, but yeah, so cool card, and I'm keen to see what people do with it because it's not something that I'm looking to play, but I can understand why people are excited for it.
So the next card, $1, by the way, that one is a little bit more expensive, so I'm not going to say the price until it potentially drops for pre-release
Right.
purposes. But Case of the Crimson Pulse is a 3 mana enchantment case. It's 2 colorless and a red. When it ETBs, discard a card, then draw 2. To solve it, which means that if it's unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step, you have no cards in your hand, so you're hellbent. And then once it becomes solved, at the beginning of your upkeep, discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. Similar to what we talked about earlier with the Oath. Bruce,
Yeah,
what do you think about this potential? Or do you think
I
of this as like a wasted slot in 3?
no, I don't. I think I like this card. I almost like it a little bit better than the Oath because of the fact that it's a mana cheaper, and it has a very similar ability. I know it's not the same, but it's very similar as the Oath of Scholars. So I really like this ability here. I mean, and we know the drawback. The drawback is that eventually, like you draw after it's solved, you're going to discard your hand and draw 2 cards, and draw your third for your turn. So you have 3 cards in hand, and you have to use them like this turn before your next upkeep. And so like, your long-term planning sort of goes out the window. But if you're trying to chain gas together, I think this is fun. Like I think this sort of card that excites me because it's fun. It keeps the game lively because you're always churning through your cards.
If you're playing decks that are like they either play a lot of removal, and you need to get them into your hand, or you're playing like recursion of some sort. Like my biggest one of the coolest cards I think that they've come out with the last few years is it's a little bit controversial, but the Sauron that allows you to discard your hand and draw cards when an army deals combat damage.
Mm.
I think that card's really good, but also because of the fact that like eventually you net positive with the cards that you're discarding versus the cards that you're drawing. So you're always drawing more than you're actually discarding, even though it takes a turn cycle to do it. And then there are ways that you can get around punishing, like getting punished for that. Because,
Well,
sometimes people are punished for the amount of cards they have in their hand. I hope Fuji puts this in his mono red deck because that would be kind of neat. And
yes.
also, like, my mono red deck that has burn in it, it's hard sometimes for me to refill my hand. So this is a way that potentially, I might not put this in there immediately, but the wheeling everybody versus just sort of wheeling yourself is pretty, I think, pretty good.
This with Bag of Holding.
It's
Bag
excellent.
of Holding is your friend. So
Yeah.
I think I think this card is I'm glad you spotted it. I missed it when I was perusing the set.
Appreciate that.
So I'm glad you pointed it out because I did not catch this card, but wow, do I think it's pretty neat. To me, it kind of reminds me of like the Tunnel Grinder card from
Yeah,
Lost Cabins of Ixalan, which sort
right.
of fills a similar role, and I like that one too. So I think this effect is neat.
This one's
I like.
repeatable though. That one's a one-time gig for the most part. The other thing is if you get 2 upkeeps, like say you play cards that like multiply your upkeep triggers, there's the potential that you could storm off on your upkeep as well. So I think Izzet has the highest potential, in my opinion, regarding the way this reacts. Like you mentioned Riel earlier.
Mhm.
I also like uh again, I love Bone Miser. It's one of my favorite cards that they printed in the last 10 years. So
Well, it's a really good card. So
I'm a sucker for that card, and I've been playing it like I bought it years ago when I had a zombie tribal deck, and now I've put it in like 5 to 7 different decks in the last like 2, 3 years even. It's
I
been
bet it's
flipping
probably
around multiple decks.
the
So
best card too. It's probably the best card you have in those decks,
it
right?
is
Is
like low key. It makes it's build it's like an army in a box. So
yep.
you know. Anyway, so the next one that I want to talk about is this is a chase rare. I mean, we know this card is strong. I just figured I'd
Mm-hmm.
mention it as like an exciting card because of the fact that this is what white was meant to do for so long, and it didn't have the
Yes.
support for it, and now it does. From the last 3 years, it has total support for this sort of strategy. But anyway, Delny Streetwise Lookout. It's a 3 mana human scout, so it's in typal, kindred sort of synergy, and then creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. So it's a win con, and then the
Yep.
ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers an additional time. This literally makes every single weenie deck like salivate. I mean,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
insane. This is insane.
Yeah. This card is super pushed. Like you have a Panharmonicon effect staple to a creature that synergizes with other
Right.
creatures that are just like it. Like it's
Yeah.
super good, and it makes your Mentor the Meek or your Welcoming Vampire or your whatever else just pop off and go crazy. So I think this card, there's nothing to say. The card's outstanding. People are going to play it in spades, as they should. The card's really good.
This
And
doubles Gallagreators. This doubles.
oh yes, it
It
does.
doubles like. There's so many weird ways people are going to find to crush, like break this. It doubles Blood Artist. It doubles all of the
Oh,
typical weenie sort of effects. I'd call them weenies because they're small and they don't really do anything on their own. But when they get together in a group, they become hot dogs. You know what I'm saying? They become like full blown ballpark, professionally grade, well done hot dogs. Um, so, man,
ah.
like any cantrip with this, my God, there's so many
Rumor
cards.
Gatherer. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. Rumor Gatherer, this.
Oh no.
So like every card, every creature that ETBs is scry
Karmic
2,
guide?
scry 4. Yeah,
Go to the
Karmic Guide, pull
Karmic
2
guide?
things back.
Oh, I haven't. I mean, I know the card is good. I didn't go looking to see what.
Alesha,
Now
so like Alesha used to be one of the strongest, in my opinion, stacks decks because of the way it was built. Because you were playing cards that hated people out for playing like threatening power 2 or less.
yeah.
Um, Chupacabra, kill 2 creatures for 4 mana because it's a
Yeah.
2/2.
Mm-hmm.
You clone any of this stuff, right? You play Sakashima, you clone Delny, you play another clone. Like you can,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I just keep looking here at all the cool
There's a lot.
toys that
There's
it
a lot of
gets.
nasty things that it can do.
Yeah.
It's a kill on sight card, folks.
Yeah. This is very
All
pushed.
right,
Very,
I'm
very
done
pushed.
gushing about this card. The next two, I'm gonna block them together because they're how I think about potentially shifting the focus of my pet deck for the last few years, which I've talked about many times on the show. Is Rutstein got a little bit more interesting. So
Hmm. Okay.
we've got Izani, Center of the Web. It's a 6 mana elf detective. It has menace. It's a 5/4, so it has pretty good stats. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, so that's like pretty good on its own. You may collect evidence for. So for collect evidence, if people are not aware of this effect, you can exile cards that equal mana value 4 or greater. It doesn't have to exactly be 4, but it has to equal 4. And if you do, you create 2 for this creature. If you collect evidence for when it enters or attacks, you create 2/1 black and green spider creature tokens with menace and reach. And then you can sacrifice 4 tokens, surveil 2, then draw 2 cards, and you gain 2 life.
That's so silly. That's such a trivial condition to meet if that like for Rutstein, because
Yep.
you're making a bajillion tokens that you're looking to sacrifice for anyway.
Yep.
And so you're gonna just keep your hand full of just goodness just to so easily. That's such a that card is like tailor made to go play with Rutstein and have them like just be
When
an
this was
absolute menace.
when this was spoiled, I teared up a bit. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I was like, this is what I was missing. This is what I was looking for. Maybe they were listening to our podcast or something because I needed one more card that could help me close a game. And like this is it for me. Granted, this card is very limited in what it does because it's very like the evidence for like if you don't have a graveyard in Golgari, you're kind of doing it wrong most
Yeah.
of the time. So this is the reason this card is 25 cents right now. It's probably going to be a lot less at this point.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone
Yeah.
playing it like applicably unless they're playing away. Maybe they're playing like a deck that doesn't really care, like Sidisi, where if they exile them, they make even more effects if creatures leave their graveyard or something.
Right.
The cool thing is it does it immediately. So like you can surveil, you can potentially sack 4 tokens the turn you play it, and then when it attacks, you get to refill your graveyard and do it again. So that's the other consideration for this potential card.
I just didn't even notice it had menace. So it has evasion, so it can facilitate getting into the red zone. So
And
this
it gives
card
creatures evasion too, because it makes 4 power of menace, which is nice. It's like Lolith, sort of like Lolith, where it makes the spiders.
Yeah.
So that with Lolith is super strong because you play Lolith on turn 5, you play this on turn 6, you activate it immediately. You get to do some more cool things. So
Yeah,
anyway, I don't want to
yeah.
go too hand in hand on this. The next card, Unshakable Tail, I'm on the fence with because of what it does is very greedy. It's 3 mana when it enters, and at the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 1. It's called Unshakable Tail, so that's a hilarious name for a card. It's a 3 mana 3/2. Whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, investigate, and then pay 2, sack a clue, return it from your graveyard to your hand. So this obviously automatically synergizes with Rutstein, um,
Yeah, it
because
sure does.
Rutstein upkeep, mill a creature, make an insect, and a clue. Um, and then there's the potential to make a food and a whatever alongside that. So I like this because of the fact that you can get it back to your hand. You can pitch it to like things like cards we mentioned earlier easily.
Hmm.
If people make you discard cards, you not really care because you can potentially get it back. And it's just interesting. You know what I mean? They've been forcing clues on us for a while. And this is a
Yeah.
weird way to sort of take advantage of that in black, where black really doesn't need the card draw. But they're not very well known for making artifact tokens in this sense. Besides like maybe Ashnod, but even then no one's playing Ashnod, so like no
No,
one cares
no.
about that card. So like there's some consideration for this 3/2 for 3, but I don't know. That's just how I look
I
at it.
I think it's a fascinating card because to me this smells like dredge. Like this is what this smells like to me,
Yeah.
and or some sort of some sort of millie or aristocrat sort of deck where this is just looking to be your next version of a relentless dead or something like that. So I think this card is like kind of interesting and like for a variety of different shells and not just red scene, but like with lots of different things. I think it's really like 3 mana 3/2 is already pretty decent. The fact that it's got an ability use every that triggers every turn, um, I think that's useful. And then anytime something goes to your graveyard, which is all the time in Commander, it's going to trigger
It
the
has to
whenever
do it
one.
from your library, so that's the key kicker. But
Well,
it's
I
really,
think
but it's good. It's good because it surveils, so immediately you could pull something down.
absolutely, yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking about
And
Runo Stormkirk as well as some weird sort of
oh
synergy where
yes,
like you surveil, you put it in your graveyard, you flip him, and then you go to your draw. Like that would be cool as well
no,
because you can layer the
absolutely,
upkeep and stuff. So there's some really neat things I think you can do with this
yeah, no,
as a
I
body. Yeah.
100% agree. I think the card is super interesting, and might be
All
not
right.
be get a lot of notice or a lot of attention, but certainly worth exploring. I think.
So I'm done talking for now. Why don't we preview some of the cards that you had? Because you had some pretty cool ones here too.
For sure. I mean, I think mine are a little bit more cut and dry because I think they're a little more widely applicable. But first one I have is Arch Druid's Charm. So green, green, green instant. Choose one. Search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield tapped if it's a land card. Otherwise, put it into your hand and shuffle. Or put a plus counter on target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And then exile target artifact or enchantment. So this is in the same cycle as the Archmage's Charm, which was in Modern Horizons, I believe. And so they're continuing that cycle. And I think this card is sort of flexible card that I've alluded to in the past that gets always is going to draw my attention, even though it's difficult to cast. I like this sort of card because of the fact that it gives me the feeling of being very safe. That I have an answer that I can use instant speed to fight down your creature, or I can exile that Great Henge or that whatever that Winter Orb or whatever it is you got before it totally demolishes me. And or I can if I need to ramp, I can go ramp with it. So
So
I just sort of
yeah.
card I just really enjoy.
I personally don't like the charm cycle. I've seen people do some nasty things with them. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't like them because of the restriction on the mana. Just
Yes.
because of the fact that, like, I mean, Archmage's Charm is, or the blue one is really good because it's like a force of negation or whatever. But um, I I'm very hesitant, even though it has really 3 good, very applicable modes, and it would be easily slotted into mono green. There's a reason in standard as well that people are only playing it in mono green because of its restriction,
Hmm.
or a side piece card for best of 3. But For for Commander, I think making choices is good. Having multiple avenues to do things is fine. I'm still hesitant because of the way that I was sort of christened into the game
Me by Mason
my
demolishing
friends
you over and over.
it was always double spelling a turn or triple spelling a turn. So like for him, he would never hold up that mana for this card. He would play three things that would smack the absolute bejesus out of you beforehand. So I think like this is a good example of one of those cards where some decks will like salivate over it, but most decks won't.
Mhm.
Like it's not
Yeah.
worthy of a slot in my opinion. But if you're able to do something with it, Bruce, go for it. Like,
Well, I think it speaks to my relative like willingness to disregard the mana cost, and
mhm.
like I don't think triple green is that hard in decks that I have green in. I think I have no
Yeah.
trouble hitting that.
Well, like
Um,
Xenaghost, like I would play it in Xenaghost because it replaces like a Decimate or something, right? It's just
yeah,
better than that card for efficiency's
yeah,
sake.
no, fair,
And I
fair
play a
enough.
lot of Mana Dork, so it doesn't even affect me. But when it comes to like uh, a deck with blue in it, blue green, like I wouldn't play it in blue green in Simic.
No, I
I,
probably wouldn't play it
you
in
know what I
Simic.
mean?
I mean, as much
Green
as
white?
Slugger,
Eh,
yeah, I probably play in green white. I'd probably
you
play in
think
green
so?
white.
All
I think
right.
so. I think
I
green
want you to
white.
put it in Dagatar and see if it works.
Yeah, I might put it in Dagatar because
I want
it
you
has
to
the
test it against me if you do end up picking up a copy and let me know how it goes because I would love to
Mhm.
see what happens, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If it said choose like two, that would be great. Because it
Oh
only says
yeah.
choose one, that's why I'm like, eh.
Hmm. Oh, I get it. I totally
So
get it, and I get and mana cost plus limited applicability and whatnot. But
eh.
yeah, again, it's the sort
If
of
it works for
it
you, it works
appeals.
for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It appeals to my older person sensibilities instead of you youngins. So get
all right,
off my lawn, Pete.
all right. Stop yelling at clouds. Okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Bruce. What's the next card?
Next one I think is one that I ended up buying a pre-release kit, and again, not being aware of what was in the set, I opened this up and I said, like, "Good grief, look at this!" So, Case of the
Ooh,
Locked Hothouse, 3 and a green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. To solve, you control 7 or more lands, which strikes me as being super trivial. And then solved,
pretty easy to.
you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may play lands and cast creature enchantment spells from the top of your library. No, nothing there is a drawback. Nothing here makes me
No.
stop and say, "I wonder if I could actually trigger this." This is like
Can I ask you a question, like a serious
go,
question?
go ahead.
Why the heck did they make it an enchantment? Because now all those silly little enchantment decks from the Abzan
Oh,
Precon are gonna just sit there, play a bunch of stuff, and we're gonna sit there and die. And I'm just gonna be sad the whole time.
it's
Could they
the
have made
absolute
this a body or at least make it harder to
something.
cast? Make it like 6 mana?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get.
Like 4 mana, you're at 5 already, and then 5 mana, like turn 5, you're at 7.
Yeah, yeah,
Like what the heck? What is
yeah,
this?
yeah. No, I know. Like, I mean, at least Oracle Modiah is fair in that Oracle Modiah can be killed.
And it
This is
reveals the
like,
top card for everybody.
yeah, this is just silly. I'm like, this card is pushed. So
Stupid.
I don't know. I don't know why they did what they did. I think the development team is like, you know what land decks need more of? They need more of this effect. I'm like, no, they don't.
All the Omnaths are just gonna play this and just they're just gonna rip things off the top, and I'm gonna be
Well,
like,
I think you're absolutely right. I think the enchantment decks, I think the landfall decks, I think they're all just like drooling over this card. They're like,
even the green stompy decks that might need a little bit more like gas.
yeah, we just gave them a tank of gasoline and said, here, play boys,
And
have
then
fun.
you said you put it in a very applicable sense where you put it in Slogurk, right? Is that what you told me?
Yeah. I went and put it right in Slogurk. So
Why?
well, Slogurk wants me to play. The trouble with Slogurk is that Slogurk gets down on the table, and then when it dies or is removed from the battlefield, you get lands back out of your graveyard, put them back in your hands. So you put 3 of them back in, and so you want to get those lands back onto the battlefield as quickly as you can to further your game plan. And so
Sure.
you end up stuck with lands in your hand, and you got to get them out of your hand to be useful again. So because you playing those lands and your Tatiova triggers or your AC triggers or your Rampaging Baloth or whatever it is that just pops off in green landfall decks. And so it went straight in there. And hitting 7 lands with Slogurk is trivial. Like, I'm going to do it by without even trying. It just does it. So it's sort of like it was like just a non-starter. I'm like, well, this is obviously going in the deck. So in it goes. But I think the card has lots of applicability. I think the card is actually really, really good, and it's $1.20 right now. So seems like a good purchase for most people.
Yeah. I guess the consideration would be as well, like when I look at these sorts of extra lands effects, I'm looking at it like, will I ever? Because you can't. Can you play stuff off the top?
Yep.
You can play creatures, lands, and enchantments.
Enchantments.
So it literally gasses everything. Okay, fair enough. I have no qualms with this. Continue. Next card.
This card is
Next
dumb.
card.
Next card up is Leyline of the Guildpact. So the mana cost is kind of a mouthful.
$8 right now.
Yeah.
Because 5-color decks, they're all going to play them, understandably so.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Stupid.
Leyline of the Guildpact. So it's got a Silesia hybrid, a Simic hybrid, a Golgari hybrid, and a Gruul hybrid for an enchantment. If Leyline of the Guildpact is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield, just like all the text on all the other Leylines. And then each non-land permanent you control is all colors. I'm not sure how applicable that is, but I guess it's kind of neat. And then lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types.
I'm laughing in some of my Voltron decks because some of them are like, you have protection from this color. So now all their stuff is one color or every color. So now I can just hit them in the face and they die.
No, it's true. Yeah, for sure. I guess that is a thing. And I look at this card and I'm like, is this really where we're going? Like, this is Chromatic Lantern 2.0 because Bruce, it's like
I saw this in Standard. Someone killed somebody on turn 3 with Radha's Firebrand with this card, and they made it a 10/8 and gave it double strike and trample with a particular card. But like, that's a memey way to kill somebody. This card, I feel like it just makes it easier for all the 5-color decks to do what they want to do, which I don't like. Although it also makes it easier for us to remove their stuff. So I'm actually okay with it because it's not like Leyline of Anticipation where they put it out on turn 0 and then you can't respond to them the entire game because they can flash everything out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so this card is like,
right?
It just feels
weird.
like it feels like it's just making 5-color decks like put them on easy mode. Like, oh yeah, like 5-color decks had it so hard before because we don't have perfect mana with our fetch lands and tri lands and everything else under the sun. So now we have this silly enchantment that's just gonna just fix all our mana so we don't need to think about it. And while we're at it, we're gonna change all our colors of stuff, and so we get bonuses if we play color matters things. Like it just feels like it's kind of like lazy design. I think is my problem with it because like I can't deny it's powerful. It's a good card. Like the thing is silly. But I'm like, this feels really lazy. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is answering some sort of need that I didn't know. Maybe it goes right in the domain deck. I don't know. But it feels silly.
Bruce, just play Blood Moon, man. Just do that. Just house them because this works like the Dryad of Azilian Grove, where like if you play the Dryad first and then you play Blood Moon, then you have all mountains. Also, Swamp Walk, Forest Walk, Planeswalk, Island Walk. So if they put this out, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go put filth in my graveyard. Good luck.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Or like, my Lord of Atlantis means all my things swim by and punch you in the face.
So I think, weirdly enough, this card is overrated to me because yes, you fix for everything, but I don't care. Like most 5-color decks, when they do that stuff, when they're fixing like that, I still we still crush them anyway because they slow. Like,
well, they're not beating you because of this. They're beating you because whatever 5-color strategy is fucking. Part of me is silly. So I have to go do some editing now. What mark is this?
Seriously,
this is the 49-minute mark. Out of note. All right.
Yeah. Brutal.
Well, this card is like this card makes me kind of angry because I don't like it because it.
All right, let's move on.
so silly. Anyway, let's go next. What do we got?
Oh god. Okay, so I want to talk about Unexplained Absence. The other two cards I have are pretty obvious in how they're decent, but Unexplained Absence is cool. So I'm going to talk about that one. It's from the Commander set. So not many people know about this one because it's in my pre-con right now. It's Unexplained Absence is 3 colorless white instant. For each player, exile up to one target non-land permanent that player controls. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller cloaks the top card. To cloak a card, put it on the battlefield face down as a 2/2 and ward 2. Turn it face up any time for its mana cost. If it is a creature card, so it's like Manifest.
Yeah, it's like Manifest.
This card is great. You want to know why, Bruce?
Tell me why.
I can exile a treasure token, and I can cloak the top card of my library. I can exile your best card. You can cloak a land. I can play political and say I'm not going to touch you, but I'm going to touch that guy, and you're going to help me beat him, and then I'm going to beat you later, but I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to do that later.
You're not. Yeah.
Or
all those are true.
Or I put it in Glunch because Glunch is a Mimi deck, and this is a Mimi way to remove something. And also because when I make people put counters on creatures, that becomes a problem for me later. So if I can target that creature later, that's actually good for me. Right?
Yeah,
so
no, for sure.
Granted, it doesn't hit lands. I wish it did. That would be really cool. But I think for 4 mana, dude, you get to exile 4 things. 3 things if you don't want to exile your own thing. And you get to choose. Some of these effects, it's like you don't get to choose, an opponent chooses for you. So this is pretty cool. This is like a white factor fiction removal spell.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure the comparison quite tracks, but yes, no, 4 mana, like zap 3 things off your opponent's boards, and dump what's it called, a cloaked creature off the top of your library or onto the battlefield as an emergency blocker or whatever. And if you can manipulate the top of your library, all the better, because that seems like fun. So I'm a big fan of this card. I think it's pretty good. Again, we all of our cards today have been on the more expensive end of things, and I think this is 4 mana well invested. So I think the card is excellent. I can see the upside. I can obviously spot the fact that like holding up 4 mana to do instant speed
in white no less is awkward. It's probably a little bit awkward because if you're holding up mana and you're playing white, normally you're playing like blue-white. But if you're playing like mono-white and you play this card and you play like Elvish Norn at your top end, then you don't care.
No, it's true. So
because that card dies immediately. So I think it's good. Sorry, I'm going to like the 0 to 100 sort of applicability of this. Granted, I wouldn't play this in every deck like you said. I'm excited to test this card out though. It's like 30 cents, isn't it? It's like $1.
It's $1.60 right now or so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the other cards that I kind of put in here, we could put them in the show notes, but I don't really know. Like, I guess, what are you excited about?
Well, like, I wanted your opinion on a few other cards.
Okay.
So, like we've talked about some of these cards in the past, but like, what is your thought like on Intrude on the Mind, which is a sort of a splashy 5 mana instant. So 3 blue instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. So there's your Fact or Fiction feel. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand and the other in your graveyard. Create a 0/0 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and then put a counter on it.
This is better than Fact or Fiction. This is way better than Fact. This replaces it outright because you get to choose the piles. That's crazy. And you get to choose the piles. Reveal the top 5.
You make the piles. Your opponent gives you one of those piles.
This is great though in like my Anello deck because I could just sack that token later to copy it. If I copied, I'm doing it for 10 cards, which is really strong.
That is good. Yes,
that's 10% of your deck. And if you've already drawn your opening 7 and you've also drawn a few cards, and you drew this, say that you drew this on turn 4, you're just digging deeper and deeper.
No, you're not wrong. I think the card is very good. But it feels like I don't know if I feel dirty playing it or not. Like it's a weird game to play with your opponent where you play chicken with them and like figure out which pile is the right one to give me.
Well, that's because you make it so that none of the piles they choose will ever benefit them.
Well, yes,
right. Like I don't know, blue black is like ha ha ha, like jokes on you, or like even your Slogurk deck. That
Hmm.
could be very, very viable because if you can move counters around like with the Ozlith, or if you're doing an instant speed to get a blocker out, that's pretty freaking good too.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, what about this one here? This one I think has been, people are sort of maybe sitting on it.
Yeah, what is it?
We have Case of the Ransacked Lab for 2 and a blue.
Oh yeah, I've
Instant,
seen this
inst,
one.
instant sorcery spells you cast cost one less to play or to cast, which always gets people interested. To solve, you cast 4 or more instants and sorcery spells this turn. Solved, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card.
The solving part
So,
is very steep, but if you're in the right
yes.
deck, it doesn't matter. Like if you're in the Izzet spell slinging deck, you're fine. If you're able to, I don't know, play a ton of cheap instants or sorceries that turn, or
Storm.
play other people's stuff potentially. Like
Oh, yeah.
say you swing with the Tali, um, and you play a Tali and you exile the top card and they're all instants and sorceries and you cast them all just to cast them, even if they don't have a target, just so they fizzle.
Hmm.
You could
Yeah.
potentially level this up too. So it's like a weird way that you could potentially get there. Isn't there? I mean, Narset does it. Narset in Light and Way does it. The hexproof girl. She could do that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think
So that would
so.
be easy to enable it. It doesn't copy, so it doesn't do the copy thing. So that's good. It's a little bit harder
Yes.
to pull off. I don't know if it's worthy of being played when you could play the Archmage creature instead, because it's
Yeah,
easier because
yeah.
it's just immediate value. Where this is like kind of slow.
Yeah.
But I
No.
do like the reduction. I think the reduction is sneaky good. Um,
That's why I was thinking Storm decks, because I think Storm
right.
decks want
That's pretty
multiple
obvious,
copies of
right?
that. Yeah.
What would be like a less obvious way to utilize this deck? Maybe you're playing a little bit more like removal heavy Esper control or something.
Maybe, yeah, or like a blue black deck, or maybe you're gonna use this to help power
Wait,
out mill spells.
blue green ramp. There you go. I broke it.
Ooh.
You play your
Ooh.
Farseek,
Ooh.
your Cultivate, your whatever for 2 mana piece, 1 mana piece.
And
So
that's
you
where you churn through you cast your ramp pieces to go draw you cards, and then you use your land cards
yeah.
to go and draw more cards, and then you win the game with a lab man.
So hold on. So turn like 5. You play Farseek for 1 mana. You play 3 visits for 1 mana. You play Rampant Growth for 1 mana, and then you play
And then
like
play a brainstorm. Why not?
a Brainstorm first on your upkeep or something.
Yeah.
Then this thing gets solved. Then you have like maybe you have 1 mana up for like a Dispel, or that's bad, a Swan Song, because you're playing all the good
So,
cards.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'm playing with good cards. Yeah, exactly.
Because you're Simic, you're playing all the good cards. Um,
Exactly.
or like you tap your mana for double, so it's easy as heck to pull this off, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Or
I
you're
think the
playing all
card
the
is
additional lands, right? You're playing a K stack. You don't care. You're just
yeah,
ripping lands off the top, blah blah blah.
yeah. You're having fun. Doing your thing. Just
Just
being
doing
a
a
yeah.
nasty. Okay. Um, let's talk about Bolt Bender real quick. That's a card that
Yeah.
you hate,
This
but
is
I think is great.
um. Well, yeah. I would say I hated it when I initially read it, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, maybe I hate it
You
less than
can't
I
change your
thought.
mind too late.
Yeah. So let's
Excuse me.
read Bolt Bender. Can I read it? I want to read this card.
Sure.
So a 3 and a red for a 4/2 Goblin Wizard, which is weird stat line 4/2. Anyway, has disguise for 1 and a red. And then when Bolt Bender is turned face up, you may choose new targets for any number of other spells and or abilities.
So, real quick, I
Yeah,
first thought of Zata because it's a goblin, and
yeah,
say someone plays like a buff spell to buff their whole team,
yeah. I
you could
mean,
buff
I
your whole team
guess.
instead,
Okay, but
or
question,
protect. Yeah, go
question,
for it. Go for it.
question. How many other decks play a lot of combat spells looking to pump their creatures?
I play a few, but that's because I'm special.
Yep. But I would say, generally speaking, most people in Commander have moved away from playing combat tricks because the effect is too fleeting. So they end up
That's
opting
fair.
for more permanent effects. So I don't think that is going to be a particularly common way that this gets used. Just
What
my
about what about like? I mean, you can change targets of spells to you. which is cool. Like if someone plays like a cantrip, you can change it. Like it says target player draws 4 cards, you get to draw 4 cards instead.
No, I hadn't even thought of that, and that's just like the most.
Also,
That's
protecting your best most glorious thing. You could change like a kill spell for like a murder. Let's do a better one, Path to Exile. To the other
yes.
person's creature. You could change it from the target being your creature or another opponent's creature to the other thing you think is a threat. So you could play it politically as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's where I was going. Removals. This is like deflecting SWAT for a removal spell, but the fact that you could use it, like if they cast, like, let's say they cast, for argument's sake, just something simple like a divination, you could then steal their divination. Right? That's how
Nobody
this. I
plays
read
that
this.
anymore, but yes, old man.
I know nobody plays divination anymore, but everyone understands what divination is. It represents
Yeah,
any
for
card
sure.
draw spell, and so you can go and steal their cards without needing to go have Notion Thief steal their cards for them.
Weirdly
So
enough, too, like speller ability. There's a lot of interesting abilities out there now too, right?
it's true. It is true.
Like it's like Willbender in a sense, where like it sort
Yeah.
of stuffs out something sneakily in a color that needs that sort of protection element. I think it's underrated.
I I think I misjudged this when I initially read it, as I think I was turned off by the fact it was a disguised creature. Because I usually assume disguised creatures are in different color patterns than red, because I know it's not what I associate with disguising or face down morph style creatures. But this ability to turn it face up is very powerful. It's deflecting SWAT on a creature, and so if you're not down with that, you have like,
It's
what are you
just
doing?
it's nuking the abilities is what I'm getting to, like where I'm looking at it. Like you can change any number of abilities to something else, which you can fizzle the
Yeah.
abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're playing like cards that synergize really well together, like humans, right? Like whenever a human enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on this human. When they go to
Yeah.
do all these triggers on the stack, you can flip it over and you can move all of the triggers onto something else, or you can fizzle
Mm-hmm.
all the triggers. So I think it's very, very sneaky. All the attack triggers, all the upkeep triggers, like you could skip someone's upkeep trigger.
Oh my goodness! I guess yeah, you can.
I mean, on the
Ah.
beginning of your upkeep, like Phyrexian Arena or something. Instead of them drawing
Just
a card on their upkeep, you change it to
no.
like you draw the card or
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
draws the
yeah.
card or whatever. So again, you can only do it once unless you're able to manipulate it to turn it back over.
Well,
Um,
let's be real. The way those things exist, you can probably do it.
I'm gonna probably put it in Jaxus and see how it runs. I might just like because I have Cloudstone Curio in there anyway, so
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
would be strong. But anyway, I think any other cards that you want to talk about at last minute here? I'm pretty much
Well,
cooked. I'm pretty good.
yeah. I mean, I was going to talk about the land cycle, which I think are good. But
Yeah,
I
we'll
mean,
put
there's
it in our
lots of
free real estate update because the economy's bad and real estate's hard to get into, but we're going to help you as planeswalkers get into real estate in the next few episodes.
we yeah. Well, we will
We're
do
going to
one
revisit
that.
one of our favorite episodes because we did do a deep dive on lands like early on when we were together,
Yeah.
and it was a fun episode. I think we should update it because there's a lot of utility lands now that have been
Mm-hmm.
pushed.
Agreed. Yeah.
So,
And
all
then one
right,
last one, the Niv Mizzet Guild Pact. I mean, Niv,
yeah,
because
let's run that one too.
so
Yeah,
Niv Mizzet. So Wooburg. So white, blue,
yep.
black, red, green. 6/6 dragon avatar, legendary creature, flying, hexproof or multicolored. Whenever Niv Mizzet Guild Pact deals combat damage to a player, it deals X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards, and you gain X life, where X the number of different color pairs among permanents you control that are exactly 2 colors. Is this any darn good?
You can reanimate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so much good.
Uh,
I want it to have haste, is what I
the
want. I
the
think
other
it's what's
the other
missing.
consideration is like if you can clone it for some reason, like with what's that 6 mana flip a coin clone Mirror March.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah, yeah.
Mirror March gives it exile or whatever, but you could potentially win a game that way, or If you're playing all the cool jumpstart effect cards where it's like 2 colors, uh, I guess the problem is the restriction of the permanents have to be 2 colors.
Yeah.
You have to have different color pairs. So like they're gonna play Faber Elder. They're gonna play
Mhm.
um probably like Thrasios to dig through their deck or something. But maybe they play Balmor and go combat tricks. That would be cool.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah,
I'm kind of of the opinion that this one is probably one of these ones that's like not going to be a really heavily played commander, but it's going to go in like another deck. Thinking maybe in like Dragon, because I think this doesn't need to be played in a Ravnica style 2 color like heavy focused deck. This is just like that's this the first Niv Mizzet like 5 color Niv deck, Niv Mizzet Reborn, is a really good card draw engine, right? Where you draw a bunch of cool cards off your end of the battlefield trigger. This one is a combat trigger where you have to deal combat damage to a player to get the trigger. Means that it's going to be much more difficult to make this one be viable as a commander because everyone can see it coming. But if you can hide it in your deck, like an Dragon or some other big 5 color deck, and just smack some people with it out of nowhere, you slap
yeah.
you play it, slap some boots or some greaves on it, and go to work. I think this is going to
It's
be where this sort of goes.
I would rather just play the other Niv Mizzet from Aftermath that gives all your instants and sorceries jumpstart because it's just better. It's just way better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe
I
you're onto
mean,
something there.
I don't know. I don't. They just try to make a cute card, I think, and everyone's looking at it like, so what? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
started to ask these questions like when I look at cards now as my finishing touch for this sort of discussion.
hmm
Where I look at the card, I'm like, okay, it does this stuff, but how does that? Why do I care? Like, why should I care? Or
Yeah.
so what? Like, what else? Like, what else happens with it? Like, we can talk about how cards are good and bad all day long, but there's always going to be one person who's going to figure out a way to break the card, which is nice to see.
Yes.
I think they aren't really like you said. I think it's a design issue, not a skill issue.
Well, I think with this one, they keep trying to make interesting Niv Mizzets, and they sort of back themselves into a corner again, where they're like, "Well, we've had one with a cool ETB, and we have another one with a sort of fun effect, and it's got to deal combat damage this time." And like, well, that's just
Eh,
that's more disappointing because it means it's gonna either have to have haste or go a
well,
whole turn cycle.
giving
So,
it double strike would be good
oh my good grief, yes, it is.
because you hit them
So
twice, commander damage. Honestly, like if you can find a way to get all 10 color pairs out, you deserve to win the game anyway.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong because that's no small
It
achievement.
has to be
So
exactly 2 colors, so you're playing some weird cards too, like cards that you don't see play all the time.
yes, it's
How
true.
many two
So
color pair cards are playable in Commander? I mean, there's not really that many that I can think of off the top of my head.
I can't really go and think of too many right off the top of my head. I would have to go do some homework, but
You
I
could
think
play
it's
Lana
probably
War
less
Dead.
than. Yeah, no, Land or Dead. I don't play that card. I haven't played it ever. So I think the card is. I think the card is interesting. I mean, it's a puzzle. I think Niv Mizzet is, and I think it's a
It's
puzzle
cool.
that some people are going to take up, and I'm going to cheer them on from the sidelines. But I think it's a cool card. All right,
Yeah,
but I think you're right. I think it's probably time for us to draw this to a
I think we've
close.
killed enough cards.
I think my excitement for murders at Karlov Manner has been satiated for this week, so I'm quite prepared to let our audience move on and have a rest of their day. So, Pete,
Yeah.
if people wanted to reach out to us, where could they find that information?
So we've got our social media in the show notes. We're on every possible platform. We have a good active email. We check it a few times a day. And Epic Experiment gmail.com. We're working on some other ways to push ourselves a little bit further up and out of our comfort zone too. So be on the lookout for some collaborations and some other directions we're trying to take our little tiny show. We're yeah, we're trying hard. I mean, this is the year for us. I think this is the year of the Epic Experiment. So we appreciate everyone's support. And if you have any questions, concerns, and you want to see some difference from us, please let us know. Drop us a comment on X, or you know what I mean, or you can hit us up over email, Discord as well. And yeah, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.